Luke, good to see you again. It's been ages.
Yes, way too long, Gordon. We should catch up more than once a decade. We should.
Absolutely. So we're going to talk a little bit about B2B influencer marketing, aren't we? Because that's your specialty. First of all, just tell us a little bit about OST.
Yeah, so OST stands for Our Social Times. That was my blog 15 odd years ago, became OST. So we're a specialist B2B social agency, mainly focused on LinkedIn, because that's the B2B world these days. But we do cover all channels, and influencer marketing is something we're very well known for, I guess. We were pretty early on coming to that game more than a decade ago. So, yeah, we've got some amazing case studies and knowledge on that space, in that space.
Yeah, and I know some of them, of course, you can't share the details because you're under NDA. But I think what would be quite useful is to get sort of an overview. You say with 10 years' experience, you've gotten to know the types of campaigns that are effective. So perhaps just tell us a little bit about some of the things that you've done in the past, more
Yeah.
specifically in the tech space.
Yeah, so I think like many agencies, we've had, and we used to have a lot of clients coming to us wanting lead gen through influencers, and that certainly didn't work years ago. It doesn't really work now either, in my opinion. So the clients that we picked up and we focused on and we grew with were the ones that wanted to build the brand, and they saw that kind of brand building vision through influencers and creators. So one of our first kind of big clients in that space was Salesforce. So we worked with them, 6, 7 years ago now, initially on quite a program for the UK and Ireland, identifying individuals who would match the brand. So they were quite specific and picky about who they wanted to work with because they've got a very, well-known brand. So we worked with them to identify individuals, and the other thing that was interesting was it was a long-term program. So these weren't kind of one-off kind of cash payments to post or whatever. It was very much around, okay, how can we involve you in our events? How can we bring you along? How can we, do takeovers and things like that we were doing at the time, kind of a world tour and different events. So the relationship bit, I think, was the most interesting piece with that, and it was far-sighted, both, from Salesforce's perspective, but also I think that was the bit that we could see the opportunity in, and it's interesting to see now that's definitely where the kind of the journey's going.
Yeah, and typically, how many people would you be, casting for such a campaign?
Yeah, so we started off, I recall, for Salesforce, it was a list of about 400 for the UK and Ireland, and this is kind
Wow.
of tech, digital transformation influencers. And then that was whittled down by them and us. We obviously did a lot of due diligence as well to a much shorter list. I think really we ended up sort of building those relationships with sort of 20 to 30 that we felt were in the right sweet spot for them. So yeah, it does sort of whittle down, and you do find individuals get drawn to you as well. So it's a mutual process.
And of course, I'm guessing in the tech space, they may not always refer themselves as influencers. They may be known as something else.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
You identify them.
yeah. Interestingly, so we worked with Dell on a big campaign a couple of years ago, and that was across Europe. So, different approach. We're working in 6 countries in 5 languages, running a series of LinkedIn Live events that we're bringing influencers into. And because the market, I think, was less mature in B2B in some countries, certainly Italy and Spain were not at the level that the UK market was at that point. We found a guy in Spain, Enrique Dance is his name, if you look him up. He's on LinkedIn. He's got 120 odd thousand followers on LinkedIn. He's a professor at one of the big universities there, but really didn't see himself as an influencer at all. And yet, when we found him, we spoke to him. We were like, "We've got to get you on this podcast, on this thing." So you can find those individuals, and you still can actually in certain markets, because B2B, every niche has its kind of leaders, and the more niche you get, the less likely they are to be professionals. So that's definitely an interesting one.
Yeah, and what sort of titles would you particularly find them as? I mean, you've just mentioned one, of course, professor, but what other
Yeah.
ones?
Yeah, I mean, so there's a campaign we're running at the moment, which is one of the ones I'd love to talk about, but can't. But it's in the US. It's a huge campaign, really. And for that one, it's interesting because there are a lot of people we can't work with because of their partnerships, connections, competitor relationships, all that kind of stuff. So the whittling down process means that we are going towards independence. So for that, we're looking at certain consultants who are, free to talk about multiple solutions and not tied to any in particular. So so for that, it's consultants, and then but otherwise it very much depends on the space. For the Dell campaign, there was a sort of HR angle to it. It was kind of post-COVID, and we were looking for that hybrid working expertise as well. So we were sort of blending some of the job roles there. The bit that we found is really hard, but we love to get them, is internal leaders, CIOs, CTOs within the bigger brands, because they've got great credibility, expertise. And you have to find the right ones who've got a kind of contract that they can also go out and do their independent things. But they're the sort of golden eggs that we look for.
And how do you source using a platform, or is it very much manual?
We have both. And we've always used both. For some of them, like I mentioned with Salesforce, collating 400 individuals initially, and analysing their reach, relevance, resonance is a data game. So we do that, and we still do that. But actually, obviously, LinkedIn data is really hard to get from anywhere. So there's a lot of manual work through that. The other thing that we find works really well is influencer to influencer or creator to creator referrals. So if you get into a real niche, chances are they all know each other. So if you find one expert on, I'm trying to think of some niche we've worked in, but we worked in food safety management at one point, real niche for that, and they all know each other. So just get in with one, and then you can find the others. Yeah,
no, absolutely, it makes sense. And then in terms of measuring B2B influencer campaigns, it has its own nuances. It can be quite different, and I think it's, I guess you want to drive registrations to events, or you want people to drive them to demos. What are the sorts of metrics that you might be putting in place?
Yeah, well, certainly, it's driven by the client and what their goals are. So that does push us towards certain types of influencers than others. There are amplifiers who are brilliant for brand awareness and that kind of stuff. And then there's perhaps more niche specialists who actually can drive genuine clicks and conversions and stuff. So we sort of base it around the client's needs. But our role really is then to assess the influencers and work out which ones are driving the most value and at different levels of the funnel. And so that's where, we do have a dashboard that we work to and we show clients. It does include some of the signals that are out there in terms of engagement rate. It's always a good signal about health of their content, etc. But we also then, we do track all the way through to conversion. So we've got kind of CRM links and stuff like that for some clients. And that works really well when you get in, as I say, into those sort of large numbers of micro influencers, drawing people through. That can be very effective.
And Luke, do you find sometimes when you've got, I always look at like a horse race, you can have a number of influencers together that on paper look like they've got a great engagement rate, great follower rate, they would all be super, but just one of them or two of them go off into the sunset and achieve outstanding results. And you're trying to figure out, well, what was it that they did that was different that we could rinse and repeat? I'm just wondering if you've had any sort of standout influencers that have done things, and what can we learn from that?
Yeah, we work at the moment. We work with a US client, again, one that I can't really go into, but they wanted to relaunch in the UK. So they came back to us. Actually, we were their agency last time they were here, like a decade ago. So we've been working on a combined paid and influencer program for them. And what we found is that the individuals who understand that audience really well, who are creators as well, they can get really strong results. Often we work with experts who aren't necessarily creators, and so we have to help them and coach them through that. But people like Andy Lambert, for example, I'm sure you'll know, in the digital space here, is a communicator. He's also an expert and he's also an influencer, so he's perfect for that kind of stuff. Lucy Hall at Social Day, we've worked with her, and again, similarly, she's got a wonderful audience who are so engaged. but she understands the content they want as well. So yeah, that's interesting. And what we found for this client as well is that integrating the creator content into our paid, so actually kind of ditching the ads and going with some of their content that they've created for us as ads is very effective as well. So we've identified those people and are kind of putting them into that joint program.
And that's absolutely been a trend to continue, I'm sure. Have you seen any types of content that are unusual, different, trendy, that you thought, oh, I love that he or she has done, that has really sparked almost like a viral impact?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say my team running it are more, they get all of the detail through there. I guess the one, I've seen a few that I've really enjoyed. So one was kind of, the brief really, this was one of these ad ones actually, was to sort of demonstrate the value for small business of this particular platform. And so the creator kind of had herself speaking to her from her screen and asking her questions, and she was kind of answering the questions, and there was this kind of aha moment. And I just thought that's just so nice and creative. You've got yourself, creating the ad, and she'd cut it brilliantly. So that kind of stuff, because it's eye-catching. People, it's kind of funny. So that kind of real creativity I thought was brilliant.
It's like, well, particularly with some of the AI tools now, you can almost have, yourself talking to yourself, asking the questions, and putting those ideas together. Because one of the things that really fascinates me is what I call influencer formats. This has been around the TV industry for years, that they find formats that sell and that combine audiences. But why, I think we're going to start to see more of this. We already are, of course, in some ways, where there'll be themes and trends that are happening. But, what if you look at the whole campaign, which are the elements that have really struck gold, and can we rinse and repeat it for other types of clients?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a big opportunity. I mean, within B2B, so you get influencers who are, I don't know, FinServe, for example. There's a whole world of financial services influencers out there, but most of them aren't creators. And if you were to add a mix of formats, creative input for there, somebody can clean up in that space. You know what I mean? You've got that knowledge, but you can also put it into the formats you need. So I think that there's a whole world in B2B that may have been saturated to some extent in consumer that's still there to be done.
And that's a really important point that you mentioned earlier that I picked up on, is that you've got somebody that hasn't got all of those 3 points. They've got authority, they've got influence and knowledge, but they haven't necessarily got that creativity. And I'm wondering whether or not you as an agency help and coach them in a way to get a better, because at the end of the day, if you can bring your creative expertise to these individuals, then it's likely that the ads will perform even better, won't they?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, within our team, obviously, as you would expect, we've got an influencer who's got 180,000 TikTok followers in her own right, kind of within our team there, kind of working with creators as well. So definitely we can coach them through that, and we do actually factor it into budgets as well now. So, if there are people in the program who need support, then absolutely we've got the video, whatever they need to sort of make them crackle on screen. Yeah,
wonderful, great. Thanks for sharing that. That's been super insightful. Just before we finish, Luke, I want to just end with a couple of trends that you think are going to impact the B2B influencer space in the next year. So if we're sat here in a year's time, what do you think will have been even more ingrained in our in the marketing world?
Yeah, so it's one I've mentioned recently to a few people, but I think in B2B in particular, there is, well, I suspect in consumer as well, but what we're seeing a lot is a focus around the legalities for clients as well. So because this is becoming bigger business, because their clients are more focused on it, it's moving kind of central to marketing. We've had to spend a lot on the legal side of things, making sure contracts work for clients in the US and the UK, making sure our insurance covers any mishaps, etc. So I think that kind of structural change for the industry and solidification, if you like, of processes and tools will happen more. I know there are platforms that very, very sort of built for this in the consumer world, but not so much in B2B because of the lack of access to LinkedIn. So I think there's a whole world of that sort of those processes to be built out in B2B.
I mean, actually, just to add to what you've said, of course, when we're talking about the United States, you've got different states with different laws. So just thinking as one nation is probably not always the right thing, and you might need to employ legal experts in those countries, or have the right relevant insurance. The devil's in the detail, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So we've got lawyers kind of working on that for us to make sure that it's not just for us as well, making sure our clients are covered with the terms, the clauses in our contracts, because we're the people contracting with the influencers. So that's a major thing for us.
Great, thank you so much, Luke. Super.
Great stuff. Thanks, Gordon. Glad to be here.